board is a desire to continue the work that our current assessor for the next period started. And so for my deliberations, I mean, just to put on the record, I would like to see that at least through this BOE season until and it's not my statutory authority in any way, shape, or form to have, but that we continue with the staffing as it is. I mean, I think that was expressed yesterday, but I want to retain the staff we have and be as successful as possible as a county. Those are my observations. I don't know, do we make a motion? Do we give out names? I've never done this process.
I'd like to say, and not taking anything away from the three candidates, but I think Bonner County's Central Republican Committee did the entire county a disservice. There were 4 applicants that were qualified, that actually know the job and can do the job, that were just completely passed over as a slap in the face to the Bonner County Commissioners, without a doubt. For me, it was pretty clear cut that there was only one, for me, there was only one viable candidate that was chosen and pushed forward. And for me, that was Mr. Engelhardt. And very disappointed in the Republican committee in their selection process. It was definitely intentional slam to the Board of Commissioners, but in doing so, it was also a finger into the air for every tax-paying citizen in Bonner County, without a doubt. And that being said, I will turn it over to the other 2 commissioners to comment how they would like and where their endorsement lies.
I spoke with the members of the assessor's office, which is, in my opinion, the most important input to take away from. They're looking for a very specific type of candidate. They are professional individuals that have the background, and they know what it is that would help them get through not just this year, but the next year until there is an election process. And so there was one candidate that rose to the top within this team. And I think it's important that this board actually hear the voices of the people on the assessor's team, because it doesn't matter which person we put, they all have a very similar background with a very significant requirement to lean on every last employee of the assessor's office, with every employee of the assessor's office having a concern as to what the direction of the office is actually going to be. And it's not just a matter of how you manage your team, but how do you manage a team while you currently need them to help you learn your job. And so my purpose of speaking with the assessor's office employees was to understand who they were looking for and who they felt could best fill that role, especially as we come on one of the hardest seasons. And there was an overwhelming support for Mr. Brown for that role to join that team.
That is not the perception that I have. I think Mr. Engelhardt is here, and that speaks volumes as well. So I'm prepared to make a motion to have Mr. Engelhardt assume the role of Bonner County Assessor for the remainder of till the next general election.
My one concern of saying if it's because he's here, I can't confirm that we actually told the other 2 that this was a meeting that they were to come to, because it was short set. Just because it's legally noticed doesn't mean that they knew that we wanted the meeting. That's why I was asking for a break to call them to see if we told them to come today. But I think that if there's a perception that's different, since we do have a number of people from the assessor's office here, we could ask them what their views are of how they see the office going, to make sure that we're making a decision based on objective information and not just being frustrated with the way Central Committee sent the candidates to us.
Mr. Chairman, I'm prepared to make a motion.
I would entertain that motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to appoint Dennis Engelhardt as the Bonner County Assessor through until
Can
the
I just say what the action item is to discussion decision regarding choosing assessor candidate for appointment on 6/5/23. It's when
we don't have to do it today?
they would be sworn in on Monday. So this is
So
just
that
your
would be his
choice of the
starting date.
candidate.
Oh,
Beginning on 6/5.
beginning on 6/5. So, Mr. Chairman, I move to choose Dennis Engelhardt as the assessor candidate taking office on June 5th, 2023.
I'll second the motion to advance it for discussion and public comment.
Public comment? Yes, sir.
I know it's Grant Norton for the record, Bonner County Assessor presently. I know it's been quite troubling, some of the names have been put forward considering, and the lack of our office names being put forward. So I would ask you to rely on the opinions of our staff because because of the consternation you guys have felt of those voices not being heard. This is an opportunity for you to hear those concerns because they're going to be the ones that have to do the work every day. So I would like to encourage you guys to hear from them, and I'd like to encourage the staff to speak freely, be brave, and do so. And if you'll hear it, I just encourage that. So,
Thank you.
Staff?
It's difficult to want to stand up, but there's a number of you in here that I talk to.
I will.
Yeah, you'll be working for the assessor, not the commissioner, so.
I want you guys, this is your opportunity to speak and you see the direction it's going, so make your voice heard, please.
I will stand up for the,
Could you speak to the mic so that it's on the
Yes, I
record, please?
can.
Thank you.
my name is Daylina Chandler, and I'm a residential appraiser for Bonner County. I agree. I don't think they did anybody very fairly. I also, there's a varying different, I don't know that necessarily you said that you disagree with Asia with regards to polling our office. Most of our offices, I was under the impression, really wanted Tom in there, to be honest with you. And there's a variety of different reasons for that. Everybody has their own reason. So
Thank you.
Al Ribeiro for the record. I was in the office when these questions were being asked, and I heard various appraisers say they were indifferent to the decision. I myself was in favor of Dennis Engelhardt just because I worked with him in the past. I was part of I stepped down from running for office because I believed in what he could bring to the office. All the research that he's done in the background to run for office in 2018 gave him a lot of knowledge already. So that's why I supported Dennis Engelhardt.
Thank you.
Thank you, Al.
Lisa Lawrence, Assessor's Office, Customer Service. I don't really have anything negative to say about any of the three candidates, but I just felt in conversation with listening to the questions presented at the forums, or whatever they were actually called during the committee things, I just was really impressed with the way that Mr. Brown presented himself as he's wanting to come in and be a part of the team. And that's just where I felt where he was strong in, strongly agreed with that. And I myself personally felt like maybe the other two candidates seemed like they were going to be a little more, stronger with their, that's not the right word, I mean to say stronger. The other candidates just seemed like they weren't necessarily going to be for us employees. They were coming in to take hold of a position and not necessarily come and take hold of a position and be supportive of the employees. And that's just my thoughts.
Thank you.
Please state your name for the record.
My name is Kerry Delaire and I'm with the Assessor's Office. I thought Tom did really, really well. I think he's presented himself. He talked very clearly. He seemed to have really good skills with possibly talking with other departments and everything else. I quite enjoyed that. He seemed like a very strong leader. And I honestly, I just felt like he listened to the questions a little bit better and he answered them, you know, a lot more confidently spoken than I am, but he did really well. So that was my vote.
Thank you. Anybody else? Part of the problem is people also express concern about having to do this because it's their job and it puts you guys in a bad spot. But not saying something makes it so that you're not heard. And unfortunately, we're all in an awkward spot. But you've heard the opinion of some of the people on this board, and you see the direction it's going to go unless you give convincing responses that showcase the conversations that showed where you wanted your support to lie. 2 years is a long time. And it's going to start fast for your group if nobody else wants to stand up. And of you, some of you guys want to run for the assessor position, which means you have to take that risk and be a leader for your team now. Some of you are supervisors, managers, experts in different areas.
Wendy Osman-Koski for the Assessor's Office. Between Dennis and Thomas, I don't know either one of them. The only impression I have is what happened in the meeting. I felt that Thomas gave more comprehensive answers. I mean, they were all kind of job interview answers, but I felt that Mr. Brown gave a little bit better supportive answers for what the assessor's office is trying to head towards, being more transparent, more efficient, supporting the staff, trying to keep the staff, because that is something that we've had a problem with in the past. So I felt both gentlemen were like right on par as to, I felt they could both be good assessors, but I felt that Mr. Brown was following more in the lines of what I was hoping the assessor would be.
Thank you.
Kevin Bryan for the Assessor's Office, residential appraiser. When we walked out of the interview meeting, I have to say that Mr. Brown and Mr. Engelhardt both fared very well, and it was pretty much dead heat to me. I felt well either way. Now, before that meeting, I would have much preferred that somebody from the office had been put forward, but that wasn't the choice that was given you, and I know that's not the choice you get to make. After talking to some of my colleagues inside the office, some of the preparation that Mr. Engelhardt did before he ran and some of what he's done since he ran may give him a slight hands up on that. So if I have to make a decision between the two, I would have to say I would weight it slightly towards Mr. Engelhardt.
Thank you.
I was very impressed with Mr. Brown and Mr. Engelhardt. They both, I think, I would echo what you said. I don't think we would do wrong with either one. But for me, his previous experience and was kind of the scale tipper on that.
So we have, oh, yeah, it was any time.
Absolutely.
Stephanie Reef, Selkirk Association of Realtors and MLS. While I would like to say I share Mark Linscott's sentiment regarding Al being the best candidate, I do agree with Commissioner Bradshaw that the committee did a disservice because the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. And being a representative of the real estate community and those who represent property owners, I have to tend to lean towards trusting the staff, and they have to work with that person as well as us at the MLS. And I trust Al's judgment in his endorsement of Mr. Engelhardt. And after the candidates interview the other day, Mr. Engelhardt was the only one that approached me and talked about the relationship between the MLS and the assessor's office and the commissioners. And that left a really big impression on me. So I would have to say that that's who would we, out of the three candidates, that's who would we, that's who we would support as well.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Mr. Beers?
You looking at me?
Oh. Quiet crowd.
Someone on that side is on the cusp of getting out of their seat is what it feels like.
He is, isn't he?
Why don't I just walk up here? I can see
You
you.
might as well get up.
Just give him one good nudge.
You're
Corey.
halfway
He's
out
at
of the
edge
chair already.
chair.
Never a time to brave.
It's-
Besides that, I like his hairdo.
Marciano Meckley, residential appraiser for the assessor's office. I was actually out Tuesday, so I wasn't here for the question portion. For me, I can't speak enough on the disservice as far as not viewing any of our candidates in-house, because I don't think a lot of people completely understand what we're walking into right now as far as our inquiry and our BOE. That's where we do everything wrong and everybody else is correct.
Yeah, the tree that fell and nobody heard it is y'all's fault. Here in the
Exactly.
next 30 days.
But within our office, we have a lot of great leaders, in my opinion, that I've worked with for the last 2 years now. I felt they would have been a better a fit, but we don't get that choice as far as the gentlemen that are now the candidates we get to choose from. I just hope they're prepared, either one, for the storm we're about to walk into for the next month and a half. With that said, I've talked with a lot of my colleagues, and I would have to lean towards Kevin Brown as far as the details. No, what's his name? Tom Brown. As far as the information I've heard. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think both of those two candidates are smart enough to know that in order to be successful, he has to make sure y'all are successful. And they both understand teamwork. And and Tom Brown surprised me. He really did. It was like presented much better than I thought he would. But for me, there was just a few little things that tipped the scale. And that's just me though. Yes, they were all three still alive.
Yes.
Robert Beers, Bonner County Coroner, for the record. So this is really advice for you three. I went through this same exact process 7 years ago. And I'm sorry for Al and for the other employees who applied that didn't get through the BCRCC. And one of the reasons for that, probably now, I wasn't there, but when I went through it, the vast majority of questions that they asked me weren't appropriate for the coroner's position. They were political, mainly in nature, like how many times I'd voted, or if the governor had sent down some sort of law, would I just willy-nilly, follow it and not argue or something like that. There's just a bunch of silly questions that were asked. One, they never even asked if I'd looked at a budget. They never asked what the coroner's jurisdiction was or when I was called to investigate death. And of the top three that they sent, I was the bottom third. I was the third guy. I was the last guy on the list that came out. And I was the only one out of the three that had any death investigation experience, to include homicides. So, that being said, my advice to you is, now that you've got the employees talking to you about who, it almost seems kind of like a coin flip between the two, but I think there is some credence that should be given to Mr. Engelhardt, just because he has run for the position in the past. And he has had the guts to take a leap of faith and try and do that, and he lost. But that being said, I think that Mr. Brown and Mr. Engelhardt both did great, I think. I think Dan did fine. But out of those two, I don't envy your decision right now, but just be aware that, and I wasn't at the BCRCC. I don't know if Asia was or not, but, this last week was your chance to ask the appropriate questions for the position, and just be careful about who you choose. Okay? All right.
Ms. Williams, anything?
No.
And you are?
Scott Herndon. As chair of the BCRCC, I just wanted to give a little bit of the background for what we did. First of all, I want to thank the candidates who applied from the office, and that was Ben and Corey and Al, and also Jesse here with the commissioner's office. I actually really appreciated that everybody expressed an interest. I thought they were all incredibly professional. We had a 20-question questionnaire. Several of the questions we were helped to prepare by Grant Dorman, since he's the outgoing assessor, and it gave us some insight into what kind of things we ought to be looking at. So a week before we made our decision, we had all of the candidates, including Hal, fill out our 20 questionnaire. And so we had that in writing in front of all of our PCs before we made a decision. And even though we didn't pick anybody from the assessor's office or Jesse or Hal, I actually was very impressed with the quality of the candidates that we did consider. And I actually would encourage them that in the future, I think all of them have a lot of talent and have a real possibility for progression in that office or any other county office. So I just want to speak on behalf of the committee, the process, and also talk about why the process is in place. When a county official resigns, and it usually can be rather sudden, they could die while in office, and rather than have a special election and have the seat vacant for a while, we have this process that's been in place in Idaho code for a very long time. I think the reason it devolves upon the party is because all elections essentially start with party nominees. And we do that through the primary election typically, but it's very hard to pull together an election on a very quick timeline. That's why the person who's getting appointed today will face the general election and then the next primary way ahead of the normal schedule. But this is sort of the filler, and I think it devolves upon the parties because we're usually familiar with people who are already involved. We've got to cast a net quickly. According to statute, we've got to act within 15 days, get you a name. If the resignation already happened, you have to act within 15 days. So the state's looking for a very tight turnaround as far as putting someone in the position. We ultimately leaned, I think, on what we perceived was the leadership experience of the candidates that we did put on the nomination list for you. It's their background, their experience, their maturity, what we perceive might be essential qualities to leading the office, and figure that, of course, it's going to be dropped into the fire, but they'll have at least the qualities that are harder to obtain when they enter into the office, which is managing people who do have the technical expertise to keep the office going. And then they can acquire the technical skills over time, because I think they're all smart individuals. So I do want to commend everybody who participated and let everybody know that we took them very seriously. I certainly did, and appreciated their stepping up, putting their name in the hat, and then answering the questionnaire and putting forth a very good effort. And I just think there's a lot of quality there. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you.
So for me, I looked to the team, and then I polled my Spirit Valley and District 2 people to see what they were looking for. There were, it was very clear. There are some people that aren't here, but the response was that in terms of leadership and coming onto a team of professionals and maintaining the cohesiveness of the team, that the choice from my district and my precinct, and in line with the majority on the side of the assessor's office, was to put forth Mr. Brown. Their resumes were very similar. There were a couple of comments made even that some people decide if you run, that means you wanted it and therefore you did more work. And other people said, well, you run and you lost, so that means the people didn't want you. And so it's a toss-up when you have to make a decision. So my vote is being cast based on what input I received from the public, with a heavy weight towards the assessor's office. The assessor's office is going to run smoothly because you guys are, as Grant said, the train, but you need a person who understands how to lay the track in the right direction in advance of you. I think that was a very good analogy. And at the end of the day, most of the people in your group tipped in favor of Brown. For my precinct, I will be very transparent. One of the things that people commented on was our area in District 2, we don't like that eagle thingy that is in existence, and a lot of people commented on that, and where they saw that was a little bit different than maybe Grant's belief system, and that was a worry. Trespassing was a worry, and they felt that Tom Brown was going to be better at continuing where your office is going, and as did the majority of the people. I went down twice to talk to your group to make sure my vote represents the people. It's not who I want to see, but who do you want to see? And it required me to look also at the district. So my vote has to be cast for Brown because that's where the support came from, in majority from your group of people.
Okay, we had a motion for Mr. Engelhardt, a second. Roll call vote.
Commissioner Almond?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
No.
Commissioner Bradshaw?
Yes. So at that point, Mr. Engelhardt will be sworn in on Monday, June 5th.
I second it to advance it for discussion. I make sure I give a disclaimer when I'm not going to vote. Yes, sorry.
It is 2:30 and we will adjourn this meeting.